Oh, this is going to be a lively and exciting conversation because we've got senior producer of content at WTA Media. That would be Ian Roebuck joining me on the On to Something podcast. I'm Bryan Fenley, a tennis commentator and do other sports for other networks. And Ian, I know you've seen some of these conversations. We like to go into the personal side, which is a lot of fun considering that when we're in this industry, it's work, work, work all the time. So thanks for doing this. I'm sure that even some of your closest friends, they watch this, they're going to say, I didn't know that about Ian. That's what I love about this.
Sure, Brian. Yeah, lovely to meet you and great to do it. Thanks for inviting me.
You have traveled around the world and many a times. I feel like there are more countries that you've been to than there are, as far as the breakdown percentage wise, that you have seen and visited more countries than you haven't. Of all the places that you visited, which one do you think about the most to this day?
Oh, wow. What a question to start with. Well, let me have a think about it. I did really, really enjoy Estonia. It is a beautiful place. I spent a few great days there following Annette Kontaveit around for a My Story piece where we met with her family and spent some time with her and her friends. But the place really resonated with me. I thought it was stunning. The people were really friendly, and yeah, it was. It surprised me. It was a very beautiful place.
Of all the places that you've been, where do you feel like the travel aspect of your job has allowed you to learn things about this world that maybe growing up you had no idea, the idea of traveling and learning and how that actually influences the way you do your job, just understanding the cultures and the world around you?
I've been to China a few times, and that's always an interesting place. Um, yeah, I think I've done maybe three tournaments there: Shenzhen twice and Beijing. And again, the people are really friendly. You know, you have preconceptions of a country or a place, and sometimes that gets blown apart when you go there. But everyone couldn't be more than helpful, and the tournaments were extremely well run. And yeah, I had again fantastic times in China. So I think that opened um, my eyes, and yeah, I'd love to go back there one day.
With what you do, obviously a lot of interviewing of these players and getting information and stories out of them that could be profound, could be things that haven't been spoken about regarding that player before. What do you think, Ian, makes a good interviewer?
Somebody who listens, I think that's really, really important. Sport is an interesting one because it's very repetitive sporting industry, and if you're sat in that interview chair trying to think of new things to talk about or new angles to approach a sports person is sometimes difficult. So if you're able to listen to their answers and perhaps improvise a little, I think that's a really important aspect of the interviewing role. So hopefully I'll listen to you properly today, Brian.
Yes, yeah, and if you tune me out, it won't be the first person to do that. No, I'm only kidding. But yeah, you're totally right. The listening, because there's so many things that the interviewee might say that could lend itself to going down a unique road, a unique path in the conversation that maybe going into the conversation that you and I maybe didn't think we were going to go down. But unless you're hearing that, it could lead to a really neat part of the conversation and something that wasn't seen to be what could have been when this conversation was all plotted out beforehand. But if you look at your career and obviously being adaptable in the different roles and what you've done in the different places and working with different people, that's been important and very congruent to who you are. But what hasn't changed over the course of your career about you?
What hasn't changed about me? Uh, I guess my enthusiasm. I'm pretty enthusiastic and open to learning new things. And right from the start, I was excited to work in this industry. And I still like to think every day, you know, I approach my job with enthusiasm. And it's important to keep that sort of wide-eyed optimism and excitement about the job. Sometimes it's worth taking a step back, I think, and just realizing what you're doing, and the privilege of working in the sporting broadcast industry. So yeah, I'd say my enthusiasm has stuck with me. Sometimes you might not always be able to see that on my face, but inside I'm thrilled to be here doing my job.
Outside of work, what are you most enthusiastic about?
I love music. That's always been a big thing for me, and I think it's really important, whatever job you're doing, really, or whatever role you have in life, to have outside interests. So yeah, music has been close to my heart since I was really young and a teenager. I don't play any instruments or anything, but I've run a music label with a friend of mine, and I currently write for a music magazine and interview bands as well as sports people when I'm outside of work. So that's one of my main passions, really. And yeah, I think it's kind of helped me in my main job as well. So yeah, I think that would be a good one to put
Yeah,
forward.
how does it help you with your job? There's this other side of you, your storytelling in a different format, but as you said, there's probably some similarities in where one side of things, music and that art of telling stories, can then benefit you in what you're doing in tennis.
Yeah, I guess there's a number of layers. I think it helps if you've got outside interests and you're keen and you soak up other methods of popular culture, I guess, like music or art or film, because you can use those, in your storytelling and with an editor, to sort of tell the story you want to. I also think it's great to talk to and interview, creative people like musicians, again, because it sort of hones your interview skills when you're sat in front of a world-class athlete as well. And it sort of brings you outside of that sporting world, and broadens the mind a little as well, I think.
Ian Roebuck is with me, senior producer at WTA Media, of course, senior producer of content at WTA Media. I'm Bryan Fenley, a tennis commentator. If in so much of what you do is telling the stories of others and doing it in a unique way that is eye popping and catching and stuff that captivates the consumer. If you had a chance to tell your story in a way that is sort of like a sizzle reel, maybe some of the conversations that you've had with some of these tennis players, how would you want to organize and structure that so that we could learn what matters most to Ian Roebuck?
Crikey, what a question. Um, yeah, where would I start? Get a crack team of producer directors on it. Probably get someone like Wes Anderson in the director's chair. You want to make it interesting right from the start. Probably try and tell the story of my career and how I sort of specialized in tennis. What got me to that point. Which isn't that interesting, but I think visually, playing on Wes Anderson's sort of palette and the style of directing could be interesting and quirky. Something like that, perhaps.
I think that's fascinating. I love your influence of Wes and his appreciation for how he does things. And you said that your indoctrination or your what it took to get into tennis isn't that interesting. But I have a feeling, Ian, there's a lot of interesting things about you. So if
Uh,
I'm here to ask you what is most interesting about you, what are those things?
uh, I'm a twin brother. I've got a twin brother. That's growing up with a twin of mine called Paul, who I'm still very close to. I guess not many people have twins in life, so we were always very competitive in sport and at school, and still drive each other to some extent. So that part of my life, I guess, is unique and interesting. have a wonderful wife and young baby at home.
Mhm.
She's the most creative and fantastic person who inspires me every day. Um, so I guess, that's a big part of my life as well. Um, yeah, don't like to blow my own trumpet very much, Bryan. So it's quite hard to it's quite hard to put into words.
If you were to put into words how your significant other supports you through your journey and how you play off of that and it's so helpful for you, how would you describe that?
I'm kind of in awe at her creativity and her willingness to try different things. She's currently on maternity leave and as a hairdresser, but she is always seeking out new skills to learn. She's recently taken up painting on glass and gilding, and she's fantastic at it. She is an amazing chef. She runs a supper club. So she always finds avenues to sort of outlets of her creativity. And I try my best to keep up, but really can't. Yeah, I just find that inspiring when it comes to my own job and approaching creative projects. Because yeah, it's important to look at things in new ways and different ways every time you approach a creative project.
How has being a dad allowed it to be something where now you look at things, at life in different ways?
Yeah, I mean it's a cliche, but it really has brought a new perspective to life and how I approach things. I don't worry so much maybe about the small stuff at work and at home and in life. When you've got a 10-month-old baby to look after, that becomes a priority. Um, but you still, I guess it gives you a new energy as well with how you approach work and life too. So yes, you don't worry about stuff, but there's a verve or an excitement again about approaching each day because you kind of realize that time is short and this new perspective on life is precious. And yeah, it's certainly a cliche, but it surprised me how much that struck me after she was born.
What kind of father do you want to be for her?
Oh, definitely. I'd love to be someone who she admires from an artistic point of view, from a creative point of view. It's always been an important part of my sort of myself, I guess. So for her to look at her mum and dad and think, had, they've got a really great way of looking at life, and yeah, I think that would be nice. I'd also like her to think that I was pretty relaxed and the cool one, and that mum was the strict the strict one, good cop, bad cop. But we'll have to see where that goes.
Well, yeah. Time
Yeah.
will be determined on that. Time will tell. But I would think like, and I know this is a completely separate avenue of your life, but working in media and there's always so much going on, and you're able to stay calm in those moments. Do you find that maybe that can help you in a situation where you're a dad and you're working in a field that always has so many moving parts and there's always so much going on and you've got to be able to stay level-headed and then take care of this and take care of that, and how there's actually a way that life working in media and what you do can actually help you in the handling of all that comes your way as a father, and those especially those early years where there's so much you've got to do and be so hands-on with everything?
Yeah, you've got it bang on, really. Yeah, it's good to remain composed. It's the only way you can do both roles, really. Not get too flustered, and yeah, just try and accomplish many things at once. Um, it's difficult. Tennis comes at you fast. The season is long, and there are a lot of tournaments, so you're juggling a lot of balls. So yeah, I guess I was well trained to become a dad, and doing both at the same time. I'm just about handling. Yeah, hanging on in there. Let's say that, but I'm getting used to it for sure. But yeah, you certainly have to multitask or be able to multitask doing both my job and the job of a dad.
Let me ask you this. The last question. Ian Roebuck is with me. I'm Bryan Fenley. When you're looking at the job that you do at WTA Media as senior producer of content, what has to pass the test as far as your internal checklist, as if to say, okay, this is what needs to be done so that it passes my approval as far as content? What needs to happen to have that happen?
I think there's got to be a strong through line of the story you're trying to tell. So it has to be compelling, and there has to be a beginning, middle, and end, and a message to what you're trying to convey. I think when we're creating short form features or longer form original content, it's important to know what that message is before you even begin to start filming or writing your questions down or anything like that, and then to follow that through with a strong style, or however you're telling your story, a strong presence. So yeah, I think that would be the most important thing to me. Yeah,
There's a lot of important things.
I mean,
So
there's so much. Yeah, trying
yeah,
to think of one is difficult. I always think scripting is a huge part of carrying that message, and having a good script is the best jump off point for a lot of content. And that art is is not always kept to in the modern world. So I guess I'm kind of old school in the fact that you've got to start with a good script and go from there.
but what people need to know about Ian Roebuck is that, yeah, there are avenues and places where you need to have the script with your work. But back at home, when you're raising a young one, you go off script all the time, and you're pretty good in that format as well.
You're too kind. You haven't seen behind the scenes, Bryan. Yeah, you've got to be able to do both. That's for sure.
Ian Roebuck, thanks so much for joining me, senior producer, of course, of content at WTA Media. I'm Bryan Fenley. Thanks so much for the in-depth conversation.
No, thank you, Bryan. I've enjoyed it.